Hello and welcome back to the iHealth channel, the FitnessFab channel, and iHealth Radio. Hurricane H here with a different guest, new guest, a different angle. Today we're going to take it a little bit into the fitness and mindfulness, but I have somebody that's been doing this for quite a while as someone that teaches in Harvard the mindfulness to students and faculty. And so this is going to be more of a fit, and really a correlation between fitness and health, mind, body, the whole works. So I have with me Jeffrey Siegel. We are going to refer to him today as Jeff. How you doing, Jeff? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm doing well, man. I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to getting to chat.
Well, listen, hey, we're excited. So I know you have a lot of background in terms of putting it all together between the mind, the body, and the mindfulness and the habits, the eating healthy, not eating healthy, all that stuff. So why don't we first, before we go there, let's talk about a little bit your background. Where you've been, how you've been doing it. What got you into this whole fitness piece, right? There's a lot of fitness out there, and also we'll talk about concepts and misconceptions, right? Or misconceptions rather. So let's go there. Who is Jeff Siegel?
Uh, so I like to kind of trace my journey back to being a teenager and a high schooler where actually suffering from an eating disorder, and I almost starved myself to death, like to the point where I stopped eating. And I couldn't really explain to you what was going on at that time. There was like this little voice in my head that just sort of took over and said, control food, count calories, stop eating, and so I learned a ton about nutrition and metabolism and all these things, but I did it in such a harmful way to the point where I actually had to drop out of high school. I had to be hospitalized for a little while, and I was just in a really dark place. I was physically a wreck, mentally just really kind of depressed, and so I think my journey began when I started to crawl myself out of that dark place back to a place of health and healing. And that journey involved so many different components, and exercise and movement was a huge piece of that for me, and learning how to move my body in a way that I could get stronger and get more mobile, but do it in a healthy way. And then also, learn how I can feed myself and what kind of nutrition is going to be right for me. And then also learn how I could work with my mind and my thoughts. And that's where the mindfulness piece and the meditation and a little bit more of the kind of spiritual side of personal growth came in for me. And so this is something that I studied. I've been living across the world, and I've been teaching, trying to bring all these different facets of sort of science and spirituality, health and fitness, mind and body together in service of helping people live better lives, so like less pain, less suffering, less harm to ourselves and other people.
Well, that's very interesting because it took some serious event that got you into it. But if you don't mind me ask, I mean, something triggered your first behavior where you really felt that you needed to look better or do something and ultimately you went extreme, which a lot of people do today. And, we've seen, and we'll talk about that in a minute, where different types of diets and different types of exercise programs, and people think that they work and then ultimately it may take them the wrong route. So tell us about that piece, and then maybe we'll expand from there.
Yeah. I mean, I like to use the word extreme because I think that's such a good word to characterize the culture that we live in when it comes to fitness, when it comes to diets, right? It's like we've gotten polarized into these extremes, right? Where it's like, and I don't want to like critique any single one, but there's, so you got like meat only on one end, right? You've got like, you've you're vegetarian, vegan only on the other end, or you've got people that swear by like, I'm only going to do kettlebell workouts, or I'm only going to do calisthenic workouts. It's like people become so divided, and they get really tribal in saying like, this is the one right way to do things. And my approach is saying, you know what, there's a lot of right way to do things. Like all of these camps, I think, have something important to teach us, right? But it's like, how can we pull out those important truths and put them together into something that's a little bit more inclusive? because I feel like that's what's going to work for most people in the long run, right? And I think that's the other thing here is like a lot of stuff can work in the short run, and sometimes going to one extreme is helpful in the short run, because if you're coming from a place where you're really out of balance, and let's face it, like a lot of us and a lot of our lives are really out of balance when it comes to movement and exercise and nutrition. So sometimes we need to go all the way to the other extreme to kind of like pull things back. But like in terms of a long-term sustainable solution, I think we need to be looking about how we can piece these things together.
Well, I refer to that as a almost the analogy of a relationship, right? You know, I mean, it's not something overnight. It's a long-term commitment, and and it takes all of the above. So it's food, it's mind, body, it's the exercise programs, and to your point, it's not one style, and it's a good thing to have a little bit of all, and that's where I stand. I mean, taking a little bit of a piece of everybody, right? Meaning a little bit of food camp if I have to, a little bit of taking care of my meals correctly, and depending on the time of the day, so on and so forth. Looking at calorie counts, all the stuff that you can use, but really just I mean, I've talked to dietitians over years, and one thing they've always agreed on is you don't have to deprive yourself of everything. You just have to do everything in moderation. And so, and I think, I mean, that's a great rule to live by. But again, to your point, some people will probably get to a position in their life where either they get too heavy in terms of weight or too skinny on the other contrast, right? And then ultimately they want to turn it around, and so they go extreme to just filling out the blank, and that could be really something that will work for a period of time. But is it consistent? Can you sustain it for long term? And that's usually where it drops. And when it drops, it probably gets worse. And that's really, I think, what I've noticed. Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah. What you're mentioning about, the sort of all things in moderation approach. I think, yes, in general, that actually is a really great sort of attitude to take. However, I find there's three different situations where that approach tends to fall apart. Right. And one is, if you have particular foods that just are trigger foods for you, right? And some people have that thing, like no matter what it is, like you can't just stop at one, whether that's ice cream or cookies or donuts. For me, it's like I love nuts, but I will sit and I will just like crush an entire can of nuts, and then be gone in like 30 seconds, right? So it's like for some of those foods that tend to just send you over the edge, I think it's important to have some clear boundaries for yourself, around like where you're going to be eating these things and when and how much, right? I think the second type of place where like moderation falls apart is that becomes a slippery slope for a lot of just like low quality processed junk food to kind of like start to slip into people's diets. So like I see it like in the beginning, it's like, yeah, I'm going to eat some of this junk. Is everything in moderation? But then like, moderation becomes every night, and then it becomes a couple times a day, right? And I think the challenge there is a lot of us lack, and this is not going to land so well, but it's like I don't think most of us are honest enough with ourselves, right? We delude ourselves so much, and so and unless you're really really honest with yourself, this whole everything in moderation thing can very quickly fall apart. And then I think the third thing that tends to get in people's way is like just the complexity of it all. Because if you're saying everything in moderation, it means like you're making all of these complex calculations of like, well, when was the last time I ate this thing, and am I going to eat it again this next time, and how does this fit in with all my other macros, and what did I eat before? And it's like there's the nutritional decisions that we make are so complex, and I think it's overwhelming. There's an overwhelming amount of complexity, and most of the times, like our brains, our cognitive apparatus cannot handle it. So what do is like we just oversimplify. We just fall back on old patterns because we just revert to what worked for us in the past. And a lot of times what worked for us in the past is not going to work for us in the future. And so I think a lot of times we just get lost in the complexity, and that's just a larger situation that I think all of us are sort of living in right now. Is like, how do we handle all of this complexity?
Well, I think two elements I would extract from the discussion right now. One is discipline, and the other is behavior, right? So ultimately, you're right. I mean, yeah, what is moderation? It vary from you to me to anyone, right? It's like we define it to our own liking, and our biases, of course, and therefore, to your point, we're not so honest because what I think is a good amount of a snack may not be exactly what it is, and then I might just indulge a little bit more, and that's it. I mean, and I think that's where we have these conceptions about diet and stuff and food and so on and so forth. So to your in your experience, what are some of the top misconceptions that you've experienced, or at least that you address and on a regular basis when it comes to either diet or exercise?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, one of my favorite questions that people ask all the time is like, is this healthy? They'll pick up a bar or, and they'll say, hey, hey, Jeff, is this healthy? Actually, it's one of my father's favorite questions. He loves asking this to me. And I just look at him and I've told him a million times and I'm like, Dad, like, you know, like the answer to that question is like, how much time do you have? Because it's going to take like an hour to answer that question, right? Because like this, is it healthy is kind of a ridiculous question because health does not live inside one single item, right? Health lives in the relationship between that food and your body, right? Between the macronutrients, the micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, right? The energy and the information in that food, and then how your body, right? Your microbiome, your digestive system, your genetics, your preferences, like how all of that is going to digest, assimilate, process, right?
Mhm.
And so I think again this misconception that some foods are healthy and some foods are unhealthy. Like yes, there are certainly foods out there that we can very clearly say like like trans fats like generally unhealthy, right? Like broccoli like generally pretty healthy. um right? But like most food lies somewhere in the middle, and it really depends on how it's interacting with your body. And as you said, it depends on how much and when and what time. If you're going to eat 3 pounds of broccoli at 3 a.m., I wouldn't necessarily call that healthy. So that's like, I think helping people break free from this healthy, unhealthy, black and white mindset is one of the big challenges that I face and that we all do. Again, sort of falling into these overly simplified traps because it's just too much to like go to a store, right? You're looking on the supermarket shelf and there's like 50 different types of tuna. You're like, well, which tuna is the healthiest, right? Do I get tuna in olive oil? Or I get tuna in soybean oil? I get tuna in corn oil? Do I get tuna with water? I get tuna with salt? Do I get tuna that's line caught or wild caught? Do I get albacore or skipjack? Or like, it's like, how do you like most people do not have the education or the patience to deal with that question, right? So you just grab the cheapest tuna and you throw it in your cart and you walk out, right? And that's just sort of the state of things.
Well, it's funny because you're talking about that, but you're right. I mean, there's so many options out there, and there's organic, not organic. I mean, you can think of there's the supplement stuff that you can buy as well to add to food, but you just touched on a couple of things. One is being the body, the metabolism, the genetics. Well, there's also the age, how you behave, your exercise amount. I mean, all that stuff. Someone that's young, I mean, will have a different metabolism than someone that's older, or male versus a female. So all these things apply, and not everybody. There's no such thing as one unique formula for all. And I think that's really what it is. I mean, there are concepts, but certainly what works for me may not work for you. What worked for me 10 years ago doesn't work for me today. I know for a fact my body is not responding the same way, no matter what I
Yeah,
do. So,
that's a really another like I'm glad you brought up that point about age and about how like our bodies, right, there are these natural organic systems, right, and they're always changing. And I think another challenge that I see is people, as you mature and become an adult, right, part of becoming an adult is learning how to feed yourself. And for some people that happens earlier on, for some people that doesn't happen until like they're like 30, right? But it's like you learn one way of eating that kind of works for you and it works for your body at that certain age, right? But you never update that because as you said, like, right, as your body ages and your metabolism changes and the level of enzymes and things change, right? And then obviously your activity levels and other things are also changing and your hormones are changing, right? So like, yeah, your diet needs to change too. And I think most people again get kind of trapped into eating one way because that was the way that tended to work. And the difficulty is that we're all left to make these decisions on our own, right? And this is where like my work as a health coach is to give people that support that they don't get anywhere else because there's so many people out there struggling to figure out, hey, what the hell do I eat, right? But like, where do they look, and because there's just way too much challenge and not enough support for most people to figure that question out.
So Jeff, you mentioned health coach. Let's. How about if we define that for folks? Because I mean, there's health coach, and does that also include fitness coach, or is it the same or different things, or is it a combination of both? So
Yeah.
maybe you can give us a little clarity on that, just to for people listening to see the difference if there is one.
Yeah. It's an interesting question, and I usually don't like to get like overly bogged down in semantics and labels, but this is a question I've wrestled with myself in terms of just how do I, because people ask me like, Jeff, what do you do?
I know.
Sometimes I say I'm a health coach, sometimes I say I'm a wellness coach, sometimes I say I'm a fitness coach, right? And it's like am I all of these things? Yes, it depends, and some of it depends on what the person needs the most, right? So like I'll take off one hat and I'll put on the other. But for me, I just sort of think of health and well-being together in this sense of, not just being free from pain and disorder and disease, but it's really an expression of like, how energetic and joyful and excited are you to be alive today, right? Like that's true well-being, right? That's when we go from surviving to thriving. So I just want to help people move along that continuum, right? So they can get out of whatever sort of sucky or feelings that they're in and move into a place where it's like all these parts of their life, right? The physical, the mental, the emotional, and then the relationships and all the other things that surround that, right? Feel like they're working for them rather than against them.
Well, thank you. I mean, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but I think, I mean, you just defined it. You defined it actually perfectly, because you're right. There is no, I mean, we can give titles to different things we do, but really, to your point, it's all the above. I mean, you work with people to keep them, in a good place health wise, and that could include the fitness components and the right advice and so on and so forth. So I get it, and I think it's a pretty simple, simple concept in a way. And at the end of the day, it's getting the message to people and getting the assistance for them. Now, in terms of the self sabotage, I know that's a word that you used. I think people sometimes we destroy ourselves, and without even knowing it. I mean,
Mm,
it depends on what our behavior can be, but at the end of the day, it's really us. To blame all the time, and sometimes we forget, or we don't see it happening until it's too late. And then we
mm.
want a quick fix. It takes months for you to gain a certain amount of weight, and then you want to get rid of it overnight. It doesn't happen. And now it's the commitment again. You have to set yourself to it. And we see this all the time, in the fitness world and in just the different diets and, all the nutrition stuff out there. It's just about people. They're not happy with how they are, how they look, and so on and so forth. But then the question is, how did you get there? How do you avoid and prevent getting there in the first place? And we all have a little relaxed time. I mean, I've been through it. Sometimes you just like give up. It's like that discipline over time. You gets tiring. I mean, eventually you'll go, okay, I'm just gonna slack off. I'm gonna cheat today, and then sometimes the cheat becomes more frequent, and then now like, whoa, I got a little belly here going on. So how? What would you say to people? How can they prevent that? I mean, or at least be aware of it.
Yeah. I like the phrase that you use, like discipline over time. Because if somebody asks me like, how do I get results? I'll say that discipline over time, right? Like consistent reps. And I don't just mean like, squats and push-ups, but yeah, like that can be part of it if you want it to be, right? But it's like that daily practice, right? It's like, how do you show up every single day without getting in your own way? And that's the self-sabotage piece. And again, I think a lot of us like don't have a deep enough understanding of human psychology to recognize that, like, our minds are not just one thing, right? Like our minds are actually filled with a lot of different belief systems. A lot of different ideas are floating around there. Some of them are kind of our own. A lot of them are things that we just inherited from society, from our teachers, from our family, right? From our friends, right? And they're kind of all drifting around. And so we have a lot of different voices in our head, right? And so this whole idea of self-sabotage, I think, is just like, we need to pay attention to all the different parts within us and how some of those parts are actually in competition with each other, right? They don't agree because they want different things. They prioritize different things. They value different things. There's a part of you that says, yeah, I want to get healthy and I want to lose some weight. Okay. But there's also another part of you that says, you know what, I'm pretty comfortable just sitting on the couch and eating my chips. And it makes me feel safe. It makes me feel happy in that moment. right? And so like now we've got these two different parts, and the question is like, which one's louder? Which one's in the driver's seat? Right.
Mhm.
And that's, it's like, I think we need to just give a lot more attention to how, like, yeah, we all have these parts. And I think it's also important not to necessarily demonize them. Right. So like, as you said, like the part of you that sort of sabotages or gets in the way, or makes you unhealthy, or makes you become overweight, right? um it isn't trying to destroy your life intentionally, right? It's just usually it's just trying to keep you safe in some way, right? These are parts that are trying to protect us, because something somewhere inside, it feels kind of vulnerable, and so we're just trying to protect that. Unfortunately, right, what happens is we try to protect that vulnerability by using food in a maladaptive way. So our coping mechanisms aren't really very good ones. And that's the problem. So if you can learn to upgrade the coping mechanism, honor the part of you that was actually just there to try to protect you, then you can actually start to kind of unwind the psychology. And now you don't have all these parts fighting with each other, but you actually are getting everything to work together on the same team. And for me, like doing that inner psychological work, I think is an important piece of making sure that that outer physical work, right, the consistent reps over time actually gets done and keeps going.
Well, so Jeff, you're referring to a full mindfulness of the whole concept, right? I mean, is that what we're talking about here, in terms of
Yeah, I
how you
mean,
define that?
mindfulness is a huge piece of this. Mindfulness is what I would say is the tool that gives you that self-awareness, right? Is the tool that you can develop to look inside yourself and begin to notice that, hey, like, yeah, like there's a part of me or a voice or a belief that I have over here that says this, and guess what? There's another part of me over here that has this. So mindfulness is that power to introspect, that power to observe ourselves. Because once we then have that awareness, then it gives us some more choice. Because a lot of times, as you said, we get in our way without us even knowing it, right? Because we're not even aware of all these different things, and therefore we don't have any choice. We can't do anything about it.
So how do we, I guess, achieve mindfulness in this case? I mean, it's got to be triggered somehow, right? I mean, there's awareness and mindfulness right now. So which one comes first? Or is it even the same, right? It's kind of sounds a
Yeah.
little kind of intriguing here.
Of course, and this is where it's like we could spend an hour sort of unpacking the definition of mindfulness, and people argue about this all the time. Like, what is it? And for me, mindfulness is about coming to the present moment, right, with a sense of curiosity and a sense of kindness, right, and that's important. To have both of those pieces there, right, because you can be really present and aware of the moment, but you can be a total jerk towards yourself and towards other people. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to be as aware as possible, right? 360 degrees, three dimensions, aware of what's going on outside of me, aware of what's going on inside of me, right? This is sort of that 3D mindfulness, right? But doing it in a way that maintains this sort of openness. I'm open to possibilities. I'm receptive, right? I'm not judging all the different things that are happening. And that's really, really freaking hard. But that's why practices like meditation are helpful, because they build that skill. They build that ability to be present without constantly judging yourself or constantly getting in your own way.
That's pretty. I think that summarizes the concept for me. I hope people are getting that. But so I want to ask the question, and it's almost going back, into some of the topics, the things that we discussed earlier about eating habits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously you're aware, you're mindful, you try to get everything done, but why is that people that they don't know how to kind of form a certain pattern of eating healthy? Or what is even eating healthy? I mean, we talked about different things, picking extreme measures, but is there a formula that if someone applies it, at least in your world, something that can be almost a success formula for eating healthy and staying healthy and really building a good behavior?
Yeah. I love the work of David Katz, who's a physician. He's started something called the True Health Initiative, right? And then also the work of Michael Pollan, if you've read his books, right? He summed it up, right? Pretty basic, like, eat real food, mostly plants, not too much, and I think as we said here, this is sort of almost a little bit of a paradox. Like, nutrition is incredibly individual, right? As we talked about, because of your genetics and your microbiome and all these things. So it's like, what works for your body, right, is not going to work for my body, right, at the micro level. But at the macro level, if you zoom out, right, and you look at humans, right, humans as a species, we are a species of mammals. You can say with like pretty good confidence that there is an overarching dietary pattern that works well for humans, right? In the same way that you can go to a zoo and say, hey, like chimpanzees eat this, and and over here, like polar bears eat this, right? And if you feed the chimpanzees what the polar bears eat, like they're gonna have all sorts of metabolic problems, right? And so I think that the overarching pattern for humans, as you said, it's like eating whole unprocessed foods, right? Most of it is plant-based. You can include meats and fishes. You can include some dairy if that kind of works for you, right? Nuts and other things like that tends to be the basis that's going to get you, right, like 80% of where you need to go, right? And then from that 80%, then you start to fine tune it of like, are you the type of person that likes a lot of meat and protein? Like you actually do really well with that. Okay. Are you the type of person that actually does way well with like lighter, lower fat type things? And so that's where you need to start to experiment. And as you said, recognize that it's always changing.
Well, I mean that's pretty simple, process. I mean if you think about it, I mean, it sounds simple, and I think it's so simple that it's hard to actually sometimes attain. I think that's really the paradox right there.
It's so simple that it's hard, yeah. Because again, it's hard because you walk into a supermarket and it's like, what do you see? It's like you've got your plants in one area, you've got your produce, okay, but then like every other aisle, it's like, is that real, quote unquote, real food? And it's like, we live in a world where there's like just so much processed stuff. And again, I'm not claiming that every single processed food is a horrible thing. Like I'm not out there like, eating, grass and dirt, right? But like generally speaking, just doing your best. And it's hard because we become so disconnected from our food. And this is part of the culture of convenience where you just pull out your phone and you get on Uber Eats and you hit a button and you've got your meal delivered. And again, most people don't really think about it. We're making decisions, based upon cost and convenience, and taste but health, like how is that impacting my blood sugar? How is that impacting my overall mood, my anxiety? Like all of these things, I think people don't necessarily see that like food impacts all of that stuff, and so it's just like learning to respect that relationship. And I think if we all got a little bit more educated on our food and where it comes from, we would maybe make different decisions about what we actually put in our body.
So Jeff, we talked about body, mindfulness, self-sabotage, all this stuff. What would be a percent based on the experience? And I'm sure you've had either the question or have dealt with people. What does the mental state have to do with this? I mean, ultimately, there's got to be a factor here where the mind over the body, right? And so, what is that formula? What is that balance? At least in your experience.
Yeah, I mean, mindset plays a significant role here, definitely. But I think mindset is almost like a little bit too limited of an idea because we tend to think of mindset of like positive mindset or growth mindset, or it's like a mindset is like this temporary state of mind that you get in, right? And the problem is like that goes away, that changes. It's a temporary state, right? And it's like you can show up and you can be really motivated today, like I'm in a positive, motivated mindset today, right? And it's like, guess what? I'm gonna do all these great things for my body. But then tomorrow, it's like I'm not in that mindset. I'm a different mindset. So it's like there's something beyond that. I think it has to do with a deeper sense of just like how we make meaning of the world, and that's a whole bigger thing to unpack, and use this term mind over body. And what I often talk to people about is trying to actually come into a different relationship, right? Instead of your mind being this little dictator, right, telling your body what it should do, it's like, what about if you had like mind with body, right? It's like, I want a relationship where it's like my thoughts, okay, are listening to my body. I think listening to your body, that's again where the mindfulness comes into play, because all mindfulness, especially when you're learning it, usually begins with being aware of what's going on in your body. It's like we all need to practice listening to our body. But then once our body tells us, hey, I'm hurting, I'm hungry, I ache, right? we need to learn how to interpret those signals. There is a lot of times where we misinterpret it because A, we either don't trust our bodies, or B, our bodies say our bodies say, hey, I'm hungry, but we need to verify that. And this is where the mind part is really important, right? Because sometimes our body signals, because we live in such a crazy artificial world, have all been all jumbled up, right? And so it's sending us signals that aren't necessarily optimal signals. So it's like there's a time and place for some mental discretion, but then there's also a time and place for just trying to kind of listen to your body. And again, it depends on where you're coming from. I think both of these camps here, again, have something important to say. Like the mind over matter, like, yes, there's a time and place for that, especially in competition when you're trying to push through to the end and you need that extra grit and that determination and everything is hard. It's just like, yeah, you need to have your mind in that exact right place to keep your body and your physiology to just cross that finish line or get to where you're going, right? And that's super important skill to develop for high performance and for athletes, and right. But then there's this other camp that just says, like, yeah, intuitive eating, just listen to your body will tell you what it needs. And my answer is yes to both of those and no to both of those, right? Because like there's times where, like I said, like your body is going to tell you some things and it might actually be what you need, just because your body can be a little bit confused, because guess what? It's been so dysregulated and so out of whack for so long because you've mistreated it that like actually its signals aren't very good to listen to, right? So it's like we need to find what is that middle ground, and that's I wish I had a simple answer for you, but that's something I'm still working on myself, my friend.
Well, actually, I think to me, you've hit on it. I mean, because I think there is no one that has to be better than the other. I think it's got to be equal. I mean, the body has to give, and the mind has to give, because it's like pain, right? You get pain, it sends a signal to your brain. Brain knows that there's pain. You have to stop doing whatever you're doing, right? And vice versa. If you get a sugar craving and you know it's not good, I mean, now you got to be conscious about it and you got to stop, and vice versa. And also you need to give good nutrients to your brain to maintain it. So I think in everything it has to be balanced. I think in life, we have to have balance in everything. And even when in this particular, concept, or at least in this scenario, that should be as just as important. So I think you did answer, in a good way, because I mean, some people may potentially disagree, or maybe they have a different view, which is
Yeah,
okay.
I invite that disagreement, and I think there's a lot of people out there that do, and I welcome that. I mean, there's no question that people have achieved amazing feats with their body by coming from this very sort of like head, right, top down approach, right? I'm just going to dominate my body with my thoughts and make it do whatever I tell it to do, right? And the body, right, is so resilient. Our bodies are so freaking adaptive that they will, right, they'll show up and they'll grow and they'll get stronger and they'll adapt, because like all our body is trying to do is survive. And if we push it to the edge, like it will come with us, but it comes with us at a cost. And I think for most people out there that are simply just trying to like wake up without a lot of pain in their body, and to look in the mirror and be like, more satisfied than dissatisfied with what they see, right? It's like, we need to find more of that middle approach. And I like what you said. It's like sometimes the body has to give, sometimes the mind has to give. We need to have the wisdom to know when to do what.
Listen, I mean, I think even if people disagree, they'll probably still accept it as a concept, because you don't go wrong with that one. I mean, when you're in the middle ground, you're always safe, right? I mean, you don't go any other side. At least that's a good approach for, I see it that way.
Yeah, I love that. That's part of me probably just being conflict avoidant.
Well, I would be the same. That's me. I always try to be in the middle of things. There's two extremes. I stand in the middle. I try to keep that nice balance, and hopefully it works. And I mean, it works for me for the most part. Sometimes, like everybody else, you have to have some fails, right? But so Jeff, I know, this last year has been a rough year. I mean, in all aspects, and it's still not over yet. I mean, we're still going through this whole COVID thing, and it's not over. There's a lot of debate out there. We're not talking about the politics behind it, but we're talking about just the health part of it, right? So last year, people were pretty much quarantined for a long time, and some people probably even today may still not be comfortable going out as much as they did. Things are still closed. Gyms are not really as open. So that had to have an impact on people. And I think we've talked about this in previous shows. But in your experience in the last year, how has it been in terms of getting people in the right place? Because some people really want crazy food and they're just home watching TV and stuff. Some people went the other way and just like literally took it to the streets, running and doing good activities. So
Yeah.
what was your experience?
Yeah. I mean, look, there is no question that 2020 and and even early in this year has been crazy. It's been crazy for people's bodies, crazy for people's health. A lot of the patterns that people had before COVID, like just totally broke down. I think a lot of people sort of went into this kind of like anything goes sort of phase, at least initially, of like, F it, like, I'm just gonna eat whatever the hell I want, right? And I think I like what you said of like, it's been an interesting, if you step back and sort of look at it almost like this like crazy massive social experiment, right? And it's like, we're going to take the entire society, we're going to lock them in their homes, right? We're going to prevent them from going to all the places that they like to go, and we're going to prevent them from seeing all their friends they like to see, right? Like that places an enormous amount of stress mentally and physically, right? So like mentally, right, we don't have the relationships that we have with people, we're missing that social contact, right? We lose so much when we don't get to have those interactions. Like, thank goodness there's freaking Zoom and FaceTime and all these things. At least that's like a little bit of that, right? But it's like we need each other. That actually helps co-regulate our nervous system, right? It's like if I'm feeling really anxious, the worst possible thing I can do is sit in a room by myself, right? But if I'm with other people that are also in a little bit more of a calm state, then those other people can actually help calm me down, right? And so that's how social relationships is so important for mental health, for other reasons as well. And then for physical health, obviously, like we're stuck at home. What does that mean? That means limited movement. That means a lot of time sitting. That means less time outdoors, less fresh air, less sunshine, right? And all of these things also then put a strain on our bodies. And so, yeah, across the board, I've seen, I think overall a lot of health deteriorate, but there have been some positive things. I think, my hope, I remember saying like back at the beginning of this, like my one wish was like, if people are stuck at home, maybe they'll start cooking more. I'm like,
True.
if you've got no other options, like maybe you'll learn how to cook a little more. Because I think, this goes back to the food conversation. It's like learning how to cook, and just cooking more meals for yourself is one of the best things that you can do to take back control of your own health, right? And then another thing, this comes from the work of Dan Siegel, he's a neuroscientist. He talks about when we're looking at complex emergent systems, and guess what, our bodies and our nervous systems are these complex emergent systems. When you put them under stress, one of two things happen, right? They either move towards rigidity or they move towards chaos. And that's always stuck with me, because you can look at like how somebody is handling the stress of the pandemic. Some people get overly rigid, right? And it's like, I'm gonna just do this one thing, and I get really, really stubborn, or you kind of like double down, right? Or some people are just like you said, sort of like anything goes, F it, I've got no routine, I've got no schedule, I'm not gonna track anything, I'm not gonna care, right? And so I think it kind of pushes people towards one or the other of these extremes, right? And again, in terms of long-term sustainable health, like neither of those are particularly good places. You don't want to be hanging out there for too long. And that comes back to like, all right, how do we reel it back in, pull it back together?
Well, and you're right. I think that's where we are today. I mean, some people are just coming back out, to try to get back a little bit of balance in their life. And I think that is tough because, a lot of people gain weight. And I mean, I can even speak for myself. I mean, I picked up a couple of pounds. I mean, I do exercise, but certain things I did before I could do it. Then the winter came, and so kind of like it shut down a lot of stuff. Activities I used to do, like my gym. I had certain things that I did at the gym I couldn't do at home. You could do all the good stuff home, but it's not the same, right? So you go outdoors, but again, if there are no people with you, sometimes it's just a little lonely. You want to do activities, and again, the social aspect of it. So people are getting slowly but surely back in track, I would say. But certainly, they have to be aware of, that you gotta balance it out. And yes, things will get better, and I think a little bit of positivity will help as well. But you're right. One of the things that I've noticed, even in our household, I mean, we stopped eating outside. So everything was pretty much fresh. You get your stuff, you cook it, less MSG, less salt, less sugar, less all that, and less oil and saturated fat, whatever. So it was all good stuff. So in a way, I mean, we saved money. That's another aspect. So there's always a
Yeah.
good side of things, right? You look at the bright side of everything. But
Yeah, I think it's important to, to highlight the silver lining that could exist, and for certainly for some people. One of those other ones is like, look, I miss going to a gym, and I miss having access to, all of the fancy gym equipment, but it's also, I think, incredibly freeing to know that it's like I can move my body, I can get a great workout, I can stay really strong and really mobile, right? Without any gym, without any equipment, right? It's like, so teaching people, right, to be their own gym, that you can have that sense of strength and physical autonomy, and you can do it basically in your living room or in your backyard. Like, I think that's a really important thing, because and so I see this, it's going to be interesting to see how the trends play out in the fitness world, over the next year, because everybody that was so used to going to a gym or so used to going to their favorite studio, a lot of people are now used to working out at home. And so, I think some people really, have found some comfort in that. And so that's one of the things I think is important to look at. And then the other one is just to recognize that, everybody's had such different experiences during COVID, and so much of it has to do with, obviously your, socioeconomic factors, right? And what kind of home you're living in and what kind of resources you have, and some people have had it way cushier than others. I just want to acknowledge that, and it's been a huge blessing. Like, I've got a space that I can work in, and I got space I can work out in, even though it's the same space, like it's still a space that, and some people don't even have that. So it's hard.
No, and you're right. I mean, it's been a tough year. I mean, and certainly like in the cities, in metropolitan areas, I mean, there's not much space you can do. You are quarantined home, and if you have a few people in the house, I mean, you share the same space, school, everything, work, and sometimes very difficult. So it's been tough. I mean, yeah, outdoors is sometimes a good place to be. I know in the spring and the summer, people out there, trying to get into some workout level, but to your point, if you're home, but you're right. There are a lot of programs that came on, after COVID to help people indoors, and there's so many now new apps. I mean, our program is the same. I mean, we turn into a virtual program and training and things like that. So you make the best of what you have, right? I mean, that's really what it is. So, but some people took advantage of it, and to your point, but it does not replace being at the gym. It does not replace the social aspect of it, but
Yeah.
certainly it has its own I guess pluses in the scheme of things. It's still a good thing. It's
Hmm.
better than nothing, but is it the best? Probably not. And but it helped people right now, even from work, right? If you think about it, even the way we do employment now has been transformed. I mean, a lot of companies, they don't even see the value of having an office because people are working home and delivering.
Yeah.
So it changed. I mean, a lot of it's almost like it proved some things that people didn't think about before, in terms of like their work. And telework is one, telehealth is another,
Hmm.
virtual sports and now another. So I mean, we've learned few things that can still be part of our future, but it certainly doesn't replace the things we had and we took
Yeah.
for granted. So
And I'm gonna say something that I think might be fairly controversial, I think, but that, a lot of gyms and a lot of fitness really fails. It really doesn't help people like radically transform their bodies, at least not in the long run, right? For me, and it's like, you go to the gym and it's like there's that group of people there, and you go back to the gym a year later, there's that same group of people there, but guess what? Like, all their bodies look the same. The really jacked dudes are still really jacked, and the really overweight dudes are still probably really overweight. And this is just coming from my own experience, and of course I know that's not universally true, but I think for a lot of people this is true. And so I think that the thing about gyms that's been so hard, as you said, is the social aspect. Like, what makes going to a gym so important for your health, and again, I'm thinking about health not just as physical but
sure.
mental and emotional, right? Is that you get to see those same people over and over again, right? Like, it becomes this place. It's like a club. It's right. It's a membership. You get to know the people. You have relationships. And what's important is that it's a place that's different from your home, and it's different from your work, right? It's this special in-between place. And I think we don't have a lot of those in-between places in our lives these days. And so to have that in-between place with a group of people that you feel connected to has such an important benefit for your overall social and emotional well-being, that I think that is the real benefit of having gyms, you know. And of course, yes, like, you know, do your squats, lift your weights, you know, go for your run. All right. But
Well, you know, Jeff, I would not, I would agree with you. It's not controversial. I think, you know, it's not the gym that works or doesn't. It's really us and what we do with it. I mean, the gym is the platform, is the zone. You come in, and it offers different things, and it's how you utilize those things, and you know whether you maintain or not. Some people really go to gym just to socialize, and you're right. It's a club. You hang out. I've seen people like they spend hours just chatting, you know, and maybe a couple pumps, and that's it. I got my stuff, you know, I get a shower and I'm good. So, to your point, it gives them that little escape room, you know, from family, you know, friends, everything. You're social, but these are the guys that you're not hanging out with. You just see them, you talk to them, you talk about work, the stress, and you move on. But then on the flip side, you know, some people that come in there and they're really like just pumping. I mean, they go in there 2-3 hours, they're just working it, right? There's also the different classes that may be offered in those gyms, and people come in, they have some fun with it, and they stay, you know, socially, you know, engaged and things like that. You're right. I think 50% of it is social. And so really it's not the gym, and you know there's always room for gyms, because that's I think important for the platform and the space available with the amenities. You know, I mean, I'll give you an example. For me, I love steam room and sauna, right? And I don't have that at home. So that's something I lost, right? But that was part of my ritual. I go in there, I do a little bit 15-20 minutes before, I do about half hour after. It was the best thing that happened to me. I loved it, right? But when that stopped, it kind of like took away half of my gym flavor. You know?
yeah, yeah,
But so it depends how you see your gym and how you operate it, right? And it's something that is, you know, gonna be missed if we don't have them. And we have to adjust. I mean, that's the other thing. You said adaptability earlier. You know, we're resilient. You know, we have to adapt. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do, and it
yeah,
works.
yeah.
But
The word that stands out to me from what you said is this idea of ritual. I think that's an important piece to it. The people that I see that are probably most, you know, quote, like successful when it comes to sustaining a fitness program or a workout program, right? It's like they've created a ritual around it, right? Like going to the gym, right? It's like you've got your bag, right? There's a certain mindset, right? You meet certain people, you go through certain motions. At the end of it, you jump in the sauna. There's the steam room. There's a massage, right? Like it takes on this sort of elevated quality,
yep.
and that's really important because again, I think we live in a world, you know, our modern material world is really lacking for a lot of ritual. Right. And so I think as humans, there's a natural human desire for ritual, to make something go from being ordinary to being a little bit more almost even sacred. Right. And so it's like turning the gym into that is a wonderful thing. And then I saw, you know, for myself, that's true. And for a lot of other people, that's true. And so I think it speaks to this cultural need that we all have for just like finding some ritual. And if you can turn any one of your healthy behaviors into a ritual, it's going to be that much more powerful. And guess what? It's going to stick around much, much longer.
Listen, I would go even one step over. I mean, to me, gym is religion in a way. I mean, really, like I've always been in some sort of a form of workout and exercise form, you know, through martial arts and so on and so forth. So to me, it is part of my behavior. It's part of my who I am. You know, I gotta go to the gym. I gotta do exercise, even at home. You know, if I do a few pumps, push-ups, you know, some abs, some you know, jumping jacks, squats, whatever. But you got to do something. 15-20 minutes, a half hour. You got to do it. You can't just be idle and just sit on the couch. But again, it takes time to be. It's almost like something that's in genes now, in the DNA. But you got to build that, you know. So it goes beyond. It's a ritual. It's almost like part of your religious belief. You have to do it. You're committed to it, and that's how you succeed. And that's also with food. You know, when you complement it with the correct, you know, nutrition and formulas that you use for your daily intake, you know, and being aware. That's it. I mean, yes, I do cheat. You know, I love my sweets. Every now and then I like my chocolate cake. you know, I can. I have a weakness. I see chocolate, I gotta have it. So, you know, the question is how much of it I have and when.
You know, the term religious, I think, actually is very accurate. You know, and I think it's true with gyms and fitness, and it's also true in the dietary world, right? And we live in a world of a lot of dietary dogma, right? Where again we talk about it's like, if you're in the if you're it's like being gluten free or being paleo or being vegan is like being a religion. It's like, it's very similar to back in the day when people would say, I'm Protestant or I'm Baptist or I'm Catholic, right? It's an identity that we hold on to, right? And sometimes it's like very visible and we throw it in people's faces, right? Sometimes
Yeah,
maybe
you
less
need.
so. Right. And yeah, again, it's just an interesting thing to see how those like dietary religions have sort of emerged, and the biggest challenge, as we talked about, like, bring it full circle back to the start of our conversation, right, is that the one of the biggest challenges with religion globally, right, is that they don't get along, right? Is that, we're over here and I'm with people in my religion and I'm over there looking at your religion, and we don't like each other, and we say, you're wrong, I'm right, like we have the answers, we're the sacred chosen people, and you guys are all going to hell, right? And I think this is true in the dietary world too. And so it's like we need to find a way to start to bridge these differences and recognize that like where we're all trying to go is the same place. Like we're all trying to evolve into something that's healthier and happier together.
I actually love that. I mean, to your point, we can coexist in every aspect of the way. It's just a matter of us willing to. I think that's really what it comes to. I mean, it's people who have these biases and they just prefer their style, or it works for them. They just think that's the only thing that works. There's multiple ways, that you can do things. There's no one. I mean, you got to think about multidimensional versus like just 1D or 2D. And
Yes, yes.
I think that's really what it is. And like I can relate to it from a martial arts aspect, right? There's so many of them, and they're all beautiful. And there's
Hmm.
no such art that's better than the other. They all have their own angles, and the best ones are the ones that actually the best people actually try to do multiples just to learn different things, because every one of those arts will give you something. Even working out, different styles of working out, different formulas. I mean, machines, free weights, classes, a little bit of boot camp. Look, you got to diversify. It's just like working different angles of your body. I mean, if you just do one set, one style, it gets dull over time. I mean, and it gets boring, and eventually you will lose the traction. And I think that's another angle to it. I mean, it's not just one way. It's you got to be open to get more. And
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And that's definitely been my path. Like my path is a broad path. It is holistic. Like I am always trying on different things and like pulling the little bits from them to try to piece them back together into something. And I studied martial arts for most of my life as well, as a big part of my
sweet.
life. And I started with like basic kempo karate, and then got into a little more BJJ, and like ultimately like I started doing mixed martial arts stuff, right? Like combining it together. But then, and there's always going to be this trade-off though, right, between specialization,
Sure.
right, and then having a real broad scope. And so you just got to recognize that, right? Like if you're the type of person that you love a particular type of martial art, or you love a particular type of movement, and you want to get really really good at it, then yeah, like
Go for
go
it.
all in on it, right? But
Yeah.
like recognize that that comes at a cost, and especially if at a cost for your body. So again, that's why I say, it's like, I think for the average person trying to be just generally, quote unquote healthy, that level of like general physical preparedness, recognizing that like if you just do one type of strength training, right, you're missing a whole lot of other stuff. Or if you just do yoga, you're missing a whole lot of other stuff. And so when you can, develop a more rounded fitness program, and you can look at the body in its natural context and ecosystem and how it was meant to move, and incorporate that in, you're gonna get better results.
Most definitely. And again, listen, we can give opinion and we can give advice, but I mean, people will ultimately have to do their own research, and I guess they got to do fact findings, right? So Jeff, I mean, we're coming to the end of the show, and it's been real. It's been fun. I mean, I think we've really had a nice little exchange here of ideas and thoughts about fitness and the correlation to health and healthy habits and healthy behavior, both mentally and physically. So Jeff, you're operating from what is your I mean I
My
know.
home base, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm up here in Boston, Somerville to be specific. So I'm up here in New England. And prior to COVID, I was working with clients locally, but I work with people all over, remotely, doing health and wellness coaching, doing mindfulness and meditation work, doing more of the just personal development, personal growth type of stuff. So it's real easy to just find me at Jeff Siegel Wellness online.
All right. Well, that's exactly what I was asking. So if you want to reach out to Jeff, I will have the link on the actual description of the show. So please feel free to reach out to him, get advice, and and see where that goes. I mean, certainly got a wealth of knowledge in terms of guidance and potentially help you get to the right mix of formula that you need: health, body, spirit, the works. So Jeff, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for being on the show. Folks, you watch it on the iHealth channel and the Fit and Fab channel. Thank you for watching. If you're listening on iHealth Radio, I hope you enjoyed the show. And we'll be talking tomorrow with a different topic, different guests. So until then, have a good one. We'll talk soon. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.